So apparently, these are Adrien Broner's purses over the past couple of years. 1 million against Vargas, not disclosed against Garcia. 1 million against Granados, not disclosed against Theophane. That guy who I can't pronounce was 1 million. Porter 1.35 million. Molina Jr. 1.25 million. Taylor 1 million. Molina 1.25 million. Maidana not disclosed. Malignaggi 1.5 million. Now, the Theophane fight, I'm sure he didn't get much for. Okay, that's not a high profile fight. But potentially the Maidana fight and the Garcia fights were his biggest purses. Particularly the Maidana fight. That's when Adrien Broner was still quite a hot ticket in boxing. So we don't know what he got paid for those. But overall, when you look at those purses, they are below what he was offered by Eddie Hearn. So you really do scratch your head and wonder why he was so dismissive of the purses Eddie Hearn offered him. And it's only a free fight deal with Eddie Hearn anyway. It's not like he's going to get locked in to a long-term contract. So you wonder what that's all about. And you also wonder what Adrien Broner had on his mind when he flat out rejected the offer from Jay-Z. In pounds, it was 26 million pounds to be paid to Adrien Broner over 5 years. Okay, so that's a 5-year deal. I can understand somebody turning down a 5-year deal because that's a long time to be signed to a promotional contract. But the Eddie Hearn deal was just a free fight deal over the course of about 1 year. So, even though the Jay-Z contract was for more money, you don't want to get locked in for 5 years on a set amount of money. But the Eddie Hearn one, I don't know. I mean, it's his business at the end of the day. He can do what he likes. But I'm just interested in what exactly was the reason behind the scenes for Adrien Broner turning it down. Now, I do know that purses, like let's just bring up Broner's purses again. These purses are often just a baseline figure. So the fighter gets paid their basic purse and then they get more money on the side, which is not disclosed. It's just the basic purses which are disclosed. So perhaps the money that he's making on the side is substantially more than this. But then again, you could say, what's to stop him getting more money on the side with the Eddie Hearn deal? Or maybe the Eddie Hearn deal was a deal where you are not allowed to get any more money on the side, where it's just 2.5 million or 2 million a fight all in. Who knows? But the theory, if you want to call it that, or the claim that Adrien Broner owes Al Haymon money, that is, I guess, a plausible possibility as to why he would turn down Jay-Z and why he would turn down Eddie Hearn. It's plausible. But as I've said before, Al Haymon clearly treats fighters well, because a lot of fighters are very loyal to Al Haymon. Adrien Broner is definitely not the only one. I mean, just look at fighters post-fight, the things that they say in their interviews. They say, I want to thank Al Haymon. Sometimes they talk about thanking Al Haymon before they thank God. He's literally one of the first people they thank. Some people have been cynical and said, well, it's in the contract, and they have to, they're contractually obligated to thank Al Haymon. So I don't know about that, but I just think Al Haymon treats his fighters very well, and a lot of them do feel genuine loyalty towards him. I remember hearing James DeGale talk about Al Haymon, and he said, Al Haymon's such a great guy. He treats you so well. He's just a nice human being, and he was just waxing lyrical about how great a guy Al Haymon was and how he was so happy that he'd met Al Haymon. So I don't want to downplay how well Haymon treats his fighters when it comes to Adrien Broner's possible reasons for turning down Jay-Z and now Eddie Hearn. So yeah, when it comes to Eddie Hearn and his DAZN deal, he's got his work cut out for him. There's no question about it. And as I've said previously, I don't give a damn about Eddie Hearn making money. What I care about is fans getting to see more fights, fights being more accessible to the fans, and fighters being able to fight more regularly. Because one of the few criticisms I have of Al Heyman and PBC at the moment is that a lot of their fighters are not very active because they don't have as many dates as they did when PBC initially launched. Because when they launched, they bought airtime from multiple different networks, whereas they're not showing PBC on a lot of those networks now. They've had to scale back, and that's left them with a large stable with not enough dates to get all the fighters active. So a new sheriff coming to town like Eddie Hearn potentially gives fighters an opportunity to be more active and get paid. And as long as they're getting paid fair and they're in good fights, then I don't see why anybody would hate on it. Yeah, it's not about Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn is a rich boy, born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He ain't starving. He don't need a penny. I don't care about him, right? I care about the fighters getting paid, the fighters getting active, and the fans getting championship fights. And people have said to me, I've seen American people say to me, nobody's going to trust Eddie Hearn unless he makes the Wilder fight. This is all silly stuff. Forget about the Wilder fight for now, okay? I'm not saying forget about it as in, don't push for it to happen, but it's a separate issue, yeah? It's a separate issue. We're talking about fighters being given the ability to fight more often and get paid well. What is your problem with that? Don't you want to see fighters get paid well? Don't you want to see fighters become more active? Don't you want to see championship fights for cheaper than you would on HBO or Showtime? Don't you want to see that? Are you not a boxing fan? You don't have to like Eddie Hearn. Look at the product. Analyze the product. Forget about the fact that Hearn is attached to it. Just analyze the product. Look at it and say, okay, is this something of value to myself and to the fighters? And from what Eddie Hearn has proposed with this DAZN deal, it seems to me like a good product. I don't see why somebody would hate on it. Now, obviously, it's going to depend on what kind of fighters he can sign, and then once he signs a certain amount of fighters, then it's going to depend on how the fans respond. How much of a backlash is there going to be against Eddie Hearn? Even if let's say he signs Mikey Garcia, Keith Thurman, a bunch of other top American fighters, hypothetically, right? I'm not saying he will, just hypothetically. Let's say he signs Thurman, he signs Garcia, he signs the Charlo brothers, etc. Will the American public, will the American boxing fans refuse to turn up and watch these top American fighters just because they're promoted by Eddie Hearn? Is that what people are going to do? Because that's insane if they do. I mean, that's unbelievable stupidity if that's what they do. Don King was a scumbag, right? Everybody knows Don King treated fighters like absolute crap, ripped fighters off, but I was still tuning in to watch Don King shows, because he put on a lot of good shows. So just because the guy's a scumbag, it don't mean he can't deliver a good product. There's even certain promoters in the UK, and I'm not talking about Eddie Hearn at this point, there's certain promoters in the UK who are also scumbags and have been for many decades, but certain promoters have put on good shows over the years, especially back in the 90s, some incredible shows that I was always tuning in to watch. So even though I never liked certain promoters as human beings, when it came to the product they were delivering, I'm tuning in. It's just that simple. And for me, that even extends over into fighters themselves. There are certain fighters who I don't like as human beings. They come across as complete scumbags, but they're entertaining in the ring, and so I still tune in and watch them fight. But that's just me. I have the ability to be objective and just look at the product rather than getting caught up in patriotism or the personality of the promoter or the personality of the fighters. I try not to get caught up in that and just focus on the product. you know. So those are my thoughts on Adrien Broner. At the end of the day, it's Adrien Broner's business. Adrien Broner's already rich. He's already paid. Good luck to him. He's a fighter. You know, he's earned his money. He's been in tough fights. So good luck to Adrien Broner. He has every right to turn down whatever deal he wants. But I'm just curious because I'm wondering how. I'm wondering what the reason was for Broner turning down the Eddie Hearn deal, and whether we're going to see something similar with other fighters dealing with Eddie Hearn. You know, because as I say, the DAZN platform is interesting to me because it's basically a Netflix for boxing. That's basically the way it's been described. And I like the idea of a Netflix for boxing. I know people in the UK won't be able to access it, but outside of the UK, there are various territories in the world where people can access DAZN. So, you know, I'm someone who, you know, I'm a bit of a globetrotter, so I'll be interested in DAZN. Definitely a Netflix for boxing. Sign me up. You know, if it's like $20 a month, and it's just like Netflix where you can cancel anytime. You know, it's like a 1 month rolling contract. That's great. You know, I'm all in. So I'm definitely interested in that, regardless of who's behind it. If the product is good, I'm on it. You know. So we'll see if other fighters have the same kind of attitude towards Eddie Hearn as Broner did. I know Mikey Garcia came out and said that Broner shouldn't have said anything, and Broner should have negotiated behind the scenes. He could have got more money, but now he's blown it. This is basically what Mikey Garcia said, and Garcia is talking to Eddie Hearn at the moment. And Eddie Hearn actually did respond to Adrien Broner, and he said that his phone has been blowing up ever since Adrien Broner put out that tweet or put out that Instagram post, whatever it was. So he said, thank you, Broner. But he also said, I don't know whether Adrien Broner knows what an NDA is. An NDA is a non-disclosure agreement. So I don't know if there's going to be legal ramifications for Adrien Broner for putting Eddie Hearn's business out there like that. I don't know, because as I say, there's a thing called a non-disclosure agreement where legally you're not allowed to reveal certain information because there can be consequences, legal consequences to it. So if Adrien Broner's got any issues financially, he might find himself in even more issues financially if Eddie Hearn decides to enforce the NDA. But Eddie Hearn doesn't have, as far as I'm aware, a reputation for enforcing legal action on fighters. He doesn't tend to go for that. If it had been certain promoters in the UK, certain other promoters in the UK, they would definitely be pursuing legal action. Right? There's one particular promoter in the UK who most British fans right now who know who I'm talking about. He is overzealous when it comes to suing people, threatening to sue people, sending cease and desist letters, taking people to the cleaners legally, suing them out of house and home. There's one particular promoter in the UK who's known for this for many, many years. And if it had been him that was dealing with Broner, man, Broner would be calling Uncle Al for another loan, you know. That's what he'd be doing. So anyway, let me know how you feel about everything I've talked about in this video. It's Hearn, I'm out.